Man, it's great to be back in a Bitcoin room with full of Bitcoiners. It's really, really good vibe. I mean, I've been around for, is there a clicker for me? Sorry, it's like, I don't even forget that. Yeah, I mean, I can feel the vibe. The energy is super awesome here. I'm just always feel super great to be back with a group of Bitcoiners who are really believing in the technology. I mean, yeah, this is me back in 2012. Talking about Bitcoin, I've been in this space for a long time. I've been a Bitcoin since 2009, and this is me trying to talk to a group of people. So my talk was a tech talk, bunch of technologists around. I was the opening keynote on that talk, and my topic was how Bitcoin is safer than your bank. And I got to fill up room because it was pretty new Bitcoin back then. And I was priced at $15, and I was talking about why you should use Bitcoin and why Bitcoin is safer than your bank, and then why. All of that. I mean, I really believe in Bitcoin. I'm so glad to be back here to feel this vibe again. I mean, I said this like the third time now, but it's like just super awesome. I'm just super excited, if you can tell. And I was trying to hunt for some old pictures as well that I've done. So this is me mining Bitcoin back in 2011 on GPU. And this is Humble, 4 GPU rigs. That was mining my guest room in my house. It was really warm and really loud. My wife's complaining about that. We were doing, so these 4 bad boys were doing like 1 Bitcoin per day. It was like, I don't know, like worth $1 or something per Bitcoin, but sure, I think we're losing money, but sure, it's just for me to get to learn about Bitcoin and get to contribute as well. And for me, yeah, I'm the co-founder of Ordzaar. I've done a couple of things. One of those are like in the CBDC in the Bahamas. I'm not a big believer of CBDC, so don't get me wrong. But I was tasked to build that, so I was privileged to be able to build that, and I built it on what? On Bitcoin. Come on, it's the best technology out there, right? So, yeah, I'm going to talk about Bitcoin builder culture. I'm going to take a step back on just to share a bit on what Bitcoin was and how it leads to where we are today. So Bitcoin is money or was money. I mean, it is money. And it being money, you don't build on money, right? So that's why we've been kind of like hearing like, oh, you can build so much stuff on blockchain now these days, but Bitcoin was money and you don't build on money. So what we had in the early days was money tech, or known today as fintech, right? Finance tech. So you build, just like USD, just like US dollar, just like, I don't know, like your currency, you don't build on currency itself, you don't build on money itself, you build around money. You build credit cards, you build debit cards, you build wallets, you build custodian tools, you build like exchanges and all that around money and not on money. And that was what Bitcoin was all about in the early days. And none of them actually interact directly on Bitcoin blockchain. So just building on that, and we see services like Silk Road, we see Mt. Gox and all of that. I'm still waiting for Mt. Gox money. Yeah, one of the creators out there. So you build around Bitcoin, not on top. And more, right? So this is one of the cool stuff that really, like now we have Bitcoin blocks that were really filled, but back in, I believe this was around 2013, I think, when Satoshi Dice came around. So before Satoshi Dice came around, like the Bitcoin blocks was pretty much empty. You could send Bitcoin for no fees. You could just send to anyone, and that was the slogan for Bitcoin, right? It's a really cheap money transaction around the world. You can send Bitcoin to anyone with like close to no fee. And Satoshi Dice came around and proved all of that wrong, because Satoshi Dice came around and filled all that block. And for that time, if you monitor the blockchain, if you monitor the mempool, you're going to get like 99% of the mempool filled with Satoshi Dice transactions. It was a casino game, but it was fun. It was people trying to build tools, more and more stuff around that. So how do you build on Bitcoin, right? So a couple of smart people start to see that Bitcoin is actually beyond just money. It's a messaging layer. It's a global storage messaging layer. I really like what Eric Wall put it just now on his panel, that it's talking about Bitcoin, the scarcity of Bitcoin is actually not on the crypto itself, it's actually on the space. So therefore, you are paying more to get into that space, right? So Bitcoin has white space, or for those in the text, it's known as OP return, right? So that white space could be used to do something more. And this is what happened in the early days. You have colored coins, so it's on that white space. You fill stuff on that white space, and you can potentially carry metadata that are generally ignored by the main Bitcoin miners out there. So also just to reiterate on what Raph and Eric was talking just now, that right now Ordinals, I mean, Bitcoin blocks are filled with Ordinals, but it doesn't add more resource to mine these things because they're generally ignored. They're just OP return. It's just, if you're developer, everything after return, it's ignored. So that's what we're seeing right now with Ordinals. That's what we have been seeing with colored coins. And Tether, it was the biggest stable coin today, was started actually on Bitcoin as a Bitcoin Omni token. Started on Bitcoin, like that was really awesome. And it was fun time for Bitcoin, like even though the usage wasn't super high, but it was the first stable coin. Like back then I didn't care about stable coin. Like, why do you need stable coin on the crypto? Like I want my Bitcoin, I don't care about stable coin. But sure, right now it's one of the core foundational part of crypto economy. Yeah, and then came this bad boy, right? Ethereum. So Ethereum started this whole thing about the world computer where you can build anything you want. You have a global singleton, programmable, Turing complete, all the instruction sets and all that. All the cool stuff you can build on Ethereum. So yeah, it was super awesome. But the good thing about that is that, sure, I'm not here to preach about Ethereum, but the good thing about Ethereum is that now it shows the world that you can actually build on Bitcoin. Building on blockchain, it's now possible. You don't have to build around blockchain. You can actually build on blockchain now. So that makes it a possibility. And that starts a whole boom of the whole developer like economy or ecosystem, whatever they call it. Like you have a lot of people going to Ethereum to build cool stuff, build dApps, and build solutions, build tokens, and build stable coins and all of that on Ethereum, and it's make it super fun. So builder culture, right? I think it started from the Ethereum side. That's so many protocols, so many standards, and so many dApps going around there. And the cool thing about building on Ethereum, I'm not here to preach about it, I just want to just bear with me because we're going to get somewhere about Bitcoin, where it adds the interoperability across dApp, right? If you build on the same layer, you build on the same protocol, you can interact with each other's dApps. So if I have let's say a lending protocol and you have, let's say a DEX, for instance, decentralized exchange, I can read from your DEX, you can kind of like do a trading bot that lend from my protocol and trade on your DEX. So that's super fun for developers because you can add more stuff around that. And this is what the whole foundation that started the whole Bitcoin revolution in the first place, because Bitcoin was built as an open source protocol, as an open source tool that relies on other open source tools, for instance, like OpenSSL and all of that stuff. So all of these stuff that are open source leads up to Bitcoin today. And that's why it was so fun when Ethereum came around, because you can build all this great stuff around them. And the cool thing about these builder culture is that it's permissionless. If you want to build something with Ethereum, just go ahead and build it. You don't have to ask anyone's permission. Just build it. And it's the same for Bitcoin as well. The same for all the open source technologies out there. Just go ahead and build it. You don't have to ask anyone's permission. So now, fast forward to what we have today on Ordinals, for those who are building the space, it can feel a little bit conflicting to see so many different standards competing for attention and competing for like, okay, I'm better standard, you should use this one, you should use the other one. And in fact, I was proposing one of the standards to store metadata on-chain on the same Ordinal itself, which I was named OIP1. I was going to talk about that slightly. But it was invalidated, or to be invalidated by Ordinals Protocol in, I don't know when it will be released, I know Casey or Raph here, that soon it will be invalidated. So, but I'm fine with that. That's how it is. We're all going to build on that. So, but I can see from all my experience in the past that it is the right sign to see people are contributing and trying to come up with all these different standards to compete against one another, because it's permissionless, because you can build anything you want. And if you don't like it, propose another one. Or if you like it, adopt it. The more, sooner or later, there will become a standard where a lot of people will adopt that, and that's good, right? So that's what it feels like when on Ordinals front, right? So standards related to Ordinals collection, there's so many different standards out there. I listed 4 here. OIP2 is, for me, a verifiable Ordinal collection. So Ordzaar has that, and Aceto, which is our open SDK, has that as well. It's where when you describe a collection, you have it on Ordinals, so you can then prove all the provenance. And there's other different proposals from other different contributors as well, like BRC-2021. Those are 3 721s out there from different contributors. They are all not related and solving different problems. But I mean, same for on-chain metadata as well. I just talked about that. So OIP1, so my proposal is trying to do inscription on metadata. So one of the key things that we do is not to break Ordinals Protocol, because what we want to do is to rely on Ordinals Protocol, not to cause a fork. I mean, not to say the forks are bad, but at this stage, let's try to align on the base layer and then build on top of that. So if you can propose something on top of that, it's like you're proposing something else in parallel on top of mine, that's good. If you don't like it, then propose something in parallel, that's completely fine. And I'm going to have my OIP one probably going to be invalidated somehow by Casey Slater's push request to Ordinals, and that's fine. I mean, that's good. So we can have like two standards in a way until it settles on one, because I still see there's some benefit to OIP one still, but we'll see how that goes. But we'll definitely adopt it. We'll definitely adopt the Ordinals Protocol one. So that's where it will be. And for those who are building in the space, keep on building. It will gravitate towards standards. So you may see, it may get frustrating once in a while. There's so many competing standards. Which one should you pick from? But just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. If you have the tools to build, just use the right tool to build and just build on top of that. Right? Just want to say one more thing. So standard, when it gravitates to a standard, it doesn't always mean it's the best way to do it. So you can argue with someone that proposes a new standard, all the good things all the time, right? Okay, my standard is better than yours is yours not so good, you should use mine, all that. It doesn't really matter. Look at BRC-20. It's not really a good standard, but that's not coming from me, like some people talk about that. And also coming from Domo as well. I mean, Domo started this. I mean, I love you, Domo, like proposing all this thing. I mean, it's great, but he started as a joke, right? He started it just as a joke. And even on his website, Domo actually said out there, like, it's not the best protocol. If you do this, you might get scammed, and there's actually a better protocol out there. Go Taro, that's a better protocol out there. Why you look at BRC-20? It's just a joke. But it took off, so now it is a standard. So now we're going to build on top of that. So it may not be the best one, but it's now a standard. So we can build on top of that. So just keep building. And along the way as you keep building, try to share what you build as well, because we're trying to be in this new space. It's hard to build. Let's not overlap each other. Just try to do more things and share with each other. Share the love, right? So for us as Ordzaar, we are building a lot of tools. And one of these things that we build, I mean, we have to do so many steps to build Ordzaar, to do an open, trustless marketplace. So you have to do so many different steps, right? So Ordinals Improvement Proposal is something that we started to kind of collect all these ideas and all these proposals together in the same place, where it's a little bit like EIP, Ethereum Improvement Proposal, or BIP on the Bitcoin side. So where you can propose stuff, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I vet through. It doesn't mean that we vet through. It's more like an open collection of proposals. So right now we have 5. The first 2 are coming from me. The third one's coming from Mark Smalley, cover commits, and then number 4 is coming from one of the site Oddlify, and then number 5 is coming from Unisat, Renewable List. So we've got a lot of contributors, collaborations from different people doing. So one of the core guidelines is that it must not break the original Ordinal theory, or right now known as Ordinal Protocol. So we want to adhere to the ethos of Ordinals Protocol as much as possible, and everything has to be on-chain and not stored off-chain. So there are some proposals that are doing on IPFS and stuff like that, so we want it to be on-chain, to be compliant with the ethos of Bitcoin and Ordinals. Share what you build along the way. So the tools we open source, so we build Ordzaar, so we open source Sado. Go to sado.space to look into that. So it's a protocol, it's SDK. It's wallet agnostic. So if you build something on Ordinals, you want to interact with like Xverse wallet, you want to interact with Unisat wallet, so you can use Sado. You can have an abstraction layer to deal with all of that, different APIs and all of that. How to construct forgot that term for the Bitcoin transaction, partially signed PSBT. Yep, so all of that will be covered by Sado, and this one example. So you go to Sado.space, download the source code, you can try to use it. It's meant to be a little bit more like what David called it, like a Web3.js, where on the Ethereum side, before Web3.js came around, it's hard to build Ethereum. Like, we take it for granted that it's so easy to build on Ethereum today, but before that, I was there. I was building one of the open source tools. I was building one of the open source tools as well for Ethereum, but eventually got overtaken by consensus fronted Web3, and completely fine. I'm fine with that. It's all about attracting people, all about attracting this build community, and that's what we want to do. That's what I love to do, and that's why we do this Sado to make it easier for new builders to come on board the space, right? So with this special occasion, we want to announce something we call Trinity. And what Trinity is, it's an independent client for Ordinals alongside Ordinals Protocol's official Ord. So if you deal with Ordinals today, you have to use Ord, right? That's the only client that you have to use to parse Ordinals. But because of what we're doing here, we have built so much tools along the way, and it now makes sense for us to release this as a standalone client for you to parse Ordinals independent from Ord. So you have a standalone client. It's built on TypeScript. And it's parsing the Bitcoin blockchain directly and not using Ord. So which means that as we have all these parallel tools, just to be clear, we're not trying to to cause a fork for Ord or whatever, but as a maturing protocol, you need to have multiple clients that you can use from, and this is a sign of Ordinals getting mature, and we're trying to play a part in contributing to that. Right, one more thing that I want to announce, I think a lot of you probably already know that, it's announcement of royalty support on Ordzaar, and we're making an open source proposal. So royalty allows artists and creators to be able to launch something and be able to benefit from it as it being traded. So this encourages things like creating a tokens where you can have more utility behind it. You can get access to clubs or something like that. So as it's being traded, you will continue to fund the original creator. And the cool thing about Bitcoin is that it's perfectly designed for that. Whereas on Ethereum side, you have to have another transactions to make payment to creator for royalty. But on Bitcoin, no, UTXO is perfectly designed for that. You just have to make one more UTXO output to royalty to the creator, and that's it. So we've put this up as on OIP. Go to oips.io. You can see that it has the definition of how you can support that, and Ordzaar will support it soon this month, and it will be a cool place for you to launch collections. Before I go off, so spare me on this one. So how it feels like right now? I mean, it's going to get a little bit technical, but just bear me. I'm going to get somewhere. So how it feels like right now for those who are building the space. So we have BRC-20. It's a fungible layer that's built on top of a non-fungible layer called Ordinals, and Ordinals is built on top of a fungible layer on Bitcoin. It feels like a monstrosity right now. It feels so hard to build right now because you have to deal with all this like invalid transactions that are going through Bitcoin. Like for instance, like Ordinals can be an invalid Ordinal transaction that are still a valid Bitcoin transaction. And BRC-20 transfer, let's say I have 2 tokens, I send someone else 2.5 token on BRC-20. It's still a valid Bitcoin transaction, it's still a valid Ordinals transaction, but it's not a valid BRC-20 transaction. It feels like it's so hard to do right now because you need to have indexing and all of that to be able to make it build easy. But before I get to that conclusion, but remember this. So remember this thing. So for those of you engineers out there, you probably remember this from your high school or from your college, right? This is how the whole networking stack looked like in today's context. So back in the 80s, back in the 90s, you don't have this layer. So what this layer covers is, I'm not going to go through all of them. So there's 7 layers. So all of that networking, all that TCP that you use on your phone, all that website you're serving on your phone and all of that, these are the layers that powers that. So the top layer, application layer, it's where we see all the website and all that stuff that's happening around. Look at layer number 4, that's where the TCP and UDP. So if you're familiar with that, that's where the packets are being wrapped up and sent to each other clients. And the cool thing about TCP and UDP as well, it can be passed along. So you get a packet that doesn't belong to you, you're going to pass it along to someone else. And there's a cool addressing system that passes it along. And this works globally. Like we just saw Udi making a speech from the US and having a live over here, and it's all thanks to this. And the most bottom layer, physical layer, is the electrical layer. So the copper wiring and all the undersea cable that's linking everything together. And that's where all they care about on the physical layer, it's about passing the electrical signal over the next hub. And so I want to say this because all these layers defines every single step of what you need to care about. So the physical layer doesn't care about is it a valid TCP packet. All it cares about is just passing on an electrical signal. It can be passing a power output over, it can be passing anything over, it does not care. And that transport layer, it does not care if it's a password login, is it an authenticator login or whatever. It does not care, it just cares, is it a valid TCP packet, is it a valid UDP packet, it passes along. If it is not invalid, discard it and don't pass it up top. So this is how the layers is being worked on right now on networking side. We take it for granted because that's how the whole world is being powered right now. And the cool thing about Bitcoin innovation or Bitcoin builder culture today is compared to any other different blockchains out there, we have this. It's actually pluggable directly into this whole model. We have the whole Bitcoin layer that's sitting on the application layer. So Bitcoin, it's not a network stuff, it's an application stuff. It sits on top of it sits right at the same level with application layer. And then the Ordinals sits on top of that, and then the BRC-20 that sits on top of that. So the conclusion is that a Bitcoin miner only has to care about whether is it a Bitcoin transaction or not. It doesn't have to care whether it's a valid Ordinals or not. So even if the blocks are filled, it's fine. You don't have to parse that. You just either you throw it away or you keep it in your disk space if you want to help to store a copy of the Ordinals. And then the Ordinals layer, the more tools and the more clients that we have, will then decide if this is a valid Ordinals or not. If it's a valid Ordinals, store it in the memory, store it in the disk. If it's not, throw it away, don't pass it along. And then we have BRC-20. So BRC-20 layer is the layer on top of that. So it fits right into this whole model. Is it a valid BRC-20 transaction or is it not? So if I have two tokens and send 2.5 to someone else, it's not a valid BRC-20 transaction. That should be discarded away. But it's a valid Ordinals. It's still a valid Bitcoin transaction. So that should still, it's still a valid physical layer transaction even, right? So all these things fits directly into this whole networking model. And this is what we see right now on Bitcoin side. And I'm really glad that we're doing this thing. It feels weird that we're building on this whole social consensus thing where invalid Ordinals can be a valid Bitcoin transaction. It feels like a monstrosity today, but it will not be 2 or 3 years from now. Once all these tools mature, once all these SDKs mature, once these APIs mature, it will not be what it seems like today. For those of you who are building in this space, thank you guys for building. And builder culture is here. We are the pioneers, continue to build on it. We're trying to pave the roads for future more Bitcoin innovations and continue to soldier on. And thank you, everyone.